08459 450. Tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can watch us on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube live from London.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, the Health Secretary says the government won't rule out banning large gatherings to stop the spread of coronavirus in the United Kingdom. Matt Hancock adds a vaccine to treat COVID-19 is still many months off, so ministers must consider all options to contain it. They include people working from home and discouraging unnecessary travel. But Mr Hancock admits action shouldn't be taken in haste.
There's a danger to doing things too early because they wouldn't be effective. At the moment, the number of cases in this country is 23, and that means that so long as people are washing their hands and taking the precautions that are set out, that is the right thing to do.
Labour suggesting the Prime Minister holds an independent inquiry into bullying claims made against his Home Secretary. Senior official Sir Philip Rutman resigned yesterday, accusing Priti Patel of a vicious campaign against him, an allegation she denies. But Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell says the claim shouldn't be ignored.
When you get a civil servant going public like this, it's unprecedented. I can't remember a case like this. So there must be something pretty bad that's gone on. Number 10 has only said that the Prime Minister has confidence in his cabinet, not specifically Priti Patel. So it looks as though she's on the way out.
At least 13,000 migrants are at Turkey's border with Greece after Turkey declared its border open to those hoping to reach the European Union. President Erdogan's decision makes good on his long-standing threat to put pressure on Europe, claiming the EU has failed in its 2016 financial promise to his country. It also follows an escalation in fighting in Syria, which has seen thousands of civilians flee an offensive by government forces. A 16-year-old boy has died after being stabbed in Coventry. Officers were called to the Stoke area last night. The suspect may have been at a nearby house party, police believe. Commuter groups are calling for the new team in charge of Northern Rail to urgently improve performance. From to date, the service is back under government control and has been rebranded Northern Trains. The Met Office has issued yellow warnings for snow across much of Scotland. There are also yellow alerts for strong wind covering parts of England, Northern Ireland and Wales. LBC's Rebecca Miles has sent this update from Cardiff.
I'm not far from the River Ely in Cardiff this morning. That reached its highest level yesterday since 2012. We have still got 10 flood warnings in force, many of those in South Wales, but now it's the wind we're being warned about. We've got a yellow warning for strong winds in force until later this morning. That's covering where I am in Cardiff right now, up to Amlwch at the very top of Wales.
LBC weather, sunshine and wintry showers, that persistent rain with hill snow across the north, feeling cold, a high of 10 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
Despite never having used them, Alison Peartree was not initially a fan of purple bricks.
Because I heard from my uncle's cousin's neighbour's dog walker they don't have proper estate agents.
But Alison's uncle's cousin's neighbour's dog walker was wrong. Purple Bricks have experienced local agents ready to sell your home.
Turns out Martin from Purple Bricks was very knowledgeable. And he didn't charge commission. I've even recommended him to my sister's boyfriend's auntie's hairdresser, Sharon.
Purple Bricks. Book your free valuation today.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing service cost extra.
This is LBC from Global. Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. I'm fresh back from the USA, landed at Heathrow this morning. Absolutely no restrictions or health checks there of any kind. And we will, of course, talk about coronavirus this morning. I'll talk a little bit about Bernie Sanders and what's happening in the big Democratic race, but a big win overnight for Joe Biden. Politically, is he back from the dead? At 11 o'clock, if you or anyone you know is part of the 5.5 million people in this country who run limited companies, act as sole traders, do contract work, please join us from 11 o'clock because there are some big tax changes due to come in a few weeks' time that could seriously affect the lives of millions of people. And as ever, of course, it's the little people that get hurt by tax changes much more than it is the big people. But of course, the biggest news of the morning, and I've got to hand it to the Sun newspaper, I just have to, Prime Minister is their headline, which I think is pretty good. Now, this has been the subject Carrie Symonds being pregnant has been the subject of gossip and speculation around Westminster for a very long time. But yesterday it's announced, and the Boris divorce came through just a couple of weeks back, and it's announced that they've got engaged, they're having a baby, and I understand this is actually the first wedding of a Prime Minister for over 2 centuries. Well, when it comes to Westminster gossip and knowing what's going on the inside, I can't think of anybody better, really, than Andrew Pearce, consultant editor at the Daily Mail and, of course, LBC presenter, Friday evenings from 6 until 10 p.m. Andrew, good morning.
Morning to you, Nigel.
So, how long has the speculation been doing the rounds that Carrie is pregnant?
If you recall, before Christmas, I can't remember what the occasion was, but Carrie Symonds was on a balcony and overlooking Downing Street, overlooking the Cenotaph. She kept disappearing, and we thought then...
Yes.
We thought then, is it morning sickness?
Yeah.
Is it morning sickness?
Now, our colleague, Andrew, our colleague here at LBC, Nick Ferrari, spoke to Boris at around about that time. Let's have a quick listen to Nick Ferrari's interview with Boris.
Next month, you'll be moving in to number 10 with a partner considerably younger than you. There was great excitement of the pitter and patter of tiny feet with the previous Prime Minister. Might that happen again?
Nick, I think I'm gonna, humbly and respectfully make the same point that I've just made. I don't believe in dragging into. You
mean there might be
politics?
Another Johnson on the way?
I'm not going to get into discussions of.
Can you tell me there's not another Johnson on the way? As if the country hasn't suffered enough from the existing tribe. I don't know if we can take any more.
So that was Nick Ferrari in November. So Andrew, it was true.
It certainly was. And the thing, Nick, Nigel, we've known in what we used to call Fleet Street for a couple of weeks now. The Daily Mail, my paper, we put calls into number 10 every day for 3 weeks. Will you confirm she's pregnant? Why didn't we run the story? Because of these balmy rules we've got now with the regulator that newspapers cannot publish stories speculating about pregnancy unless a woman is at least 4 months gone. So we were very frustrated. But it's why so many Sunday papers today have got great packages about the baby, because they were ready. We were all ready.
Yeah.
We knew.
They've been preparing. So they're saying it's going to be an early summer baby. Now, given that midsummer is in the middle of June, we're sort of looking at May, I guess, aren't we?
Something like that. And of course, there's going to be a wedding too. Now, that's the first wedding for a very, very long time. As you point out, over 200 years.
Yeah.
It was Lord Liverpool. And if you look up Lord Liverpool, actually, he was a slightly overweight, blonde bombshell. Coincidence? Just a coincidence. But the other thing, Nigel, the timing of this announcement yesterday, by God, Priti Patel was in the firing line, the Home Secretary, because her permanent secretary, a weedy, chinless wonder called Sir Philip somebody or other.
Oh, you've just stolen my lines. I'm very disappointed.
There we are. He's resigned. He did it with a very melodramatic press conference, virtually accused the Home Secretary of lying. This has blown the permanent secretary, whoever his name is, well out of the water.
I tell you what, Andrew, let's have a little listen to somebody that you have just written off as a chinless wonder. Let LBC listeners hear Sir Philip Rutnam yesterday.
I have this morning resigned as Permanent Secretary of the Home Office. I take this decision with great regret after a career of 33 years. I am making this statement now because I will be issuing a claim against the Home Office for constructive dismissal. In the last 10 days, I have been the target of a vicious and orchestrated briefing campaign.
Oh, poor baby.
It has been alleged that I have briefed the media against the Home Secretary. This, along with many other claims, is completely false. The Home Secretary categorically denied any involvement in this campaign to the Cabinet Office. I regret I do not believe her. She has not made the efforts I would expect to dissociate herself from the comments.
Oh, dear.
I have received allegations that her conduct has included shouting and swearing, belittling people, making unreasonable and repeated demands, behaviour that created fear and needed some bravery to call out.
Well, that really is quite a whinge-a-thon, Andrew, isn't it?
Indeed. And actually, if you look at the record of this particular Mandarin, shocking. Whether it was Windrush, the immigration scandal from the people coming in from the West Indies, the previous Home Secretary but one, Amber Rudd, lost her job. When he was Transport Secretary, he was the one on his watch. We saw the cost of HS2 soaring through the ceiling. Priti Patel will be relieved he's gone. She'll be irritated about the way he's gone. But it is still very convenient for number 10, Nigel, that the baby comes out yesterday.
Yeah, I can see that. But I think what did amuse me slightly, and anyone that's ever watched the thick of it will have sort of heard quite a bit of language. Andrew, you've worked in the press. I've worked in politics and the press. I mean, come on, swearing. I mean, he says that she was swearing. I mean, have you ever known anybody in politics that doesn't swear?
No, and I've known
Anne
you
Widdecombe,
a long time,
maybe.
Nigel.
Anne Widdecombe, maybe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Anne Widdecombe for sure.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage definitely swears. And I think you've sworn at me once or twice, Mr. Farage.
With justification, absolutely.
Yeah, with justification. Look, it's a rough old business politics. And the point about Priti Patel and this particular civil servant, she has become exasperated by the failure of the police in particular, Nigel, to do their job. One of the final straws for her was when the police stood by and allowed those Extinction Rebellions protesters to dig up that lawn in Cambridge. They didn't do anything about it because of the human rights aspect of the protesters. She hit the roof, she hit the ceiling, and things have been going downhill ever since.
Yeah.
He's doing her job. She wants the permanent secretary to get the police to do her job. He's been opposing her. She also wanted to say before the general election, Nigel, that she wanted tasers rolled out for the entire country. He blocks the announcement.
Is there a chance, given that, Sir Philip was head of this department, I mean, some newspapers saying that maybe Home Office officials will now start to drag their feet on the immigration reforms? I mean, is there a possibility here that this government really does go to war with the civil service?
Well, you've heard, everybody listening to LBC will have heard of Dominic Cummings. He's the Prime Minister's special advisor who thinks the civil service doesn't work. He thinks the civil service has to be turned on end from top to toe. This is a classic example. This is a real sign that Dominic Cummings is getting his way. The permanent secretary has resigned. Dominic Cummings wants more to go because he thinks they are a block to progress and a block to change. I rather agree with him. The civil service is also very good. It's just that some of the ones at the top have always done things in a certain way, Nigel, and they don't want to do it differently. Priti Patel saw off this permanent secretary. This permanent secretary saw off Amber Rudd, a previous Home Secretary. I think it's ministers who should win, not the civil servants.
So if we take our minds back to that brilliant comedy series, Yes Minister, which sort of portrayed the civil service as actually being in charge and running the country, it's almost a point to that somewhere, isn't there?
There is. Sir Humphrey Appleton, wasn't that his surname?
Appleby, I think it was, yeah.
Appleby, that's right, who always got the better of ministers. It's a brilliant series. Mrs. Thatcher watched it every week because she knew it was a problem. She was the great reformer, the great radical. She never sorted out the civil service. Perhaps, Nigel, perhaps we've finally seen a government that's going to try. They need to. And on immigration, of course, you've mentioned immigration. The whole immigration system is changing. The Home Office has to enforce it. Priti Patel clearly didn't think this bloke had what it took to do that. It'd be interesting to see who takes his place.
It will. Now, in the last couple of weeks, Boris has lost the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He has a Home Secretary at war with her own department. And, the Observer speculating that maybe her own position is under threat. I'm not so sure that's true. But to some extent, and then, we've got the Boris not visiting the floods, and we've got Cobra not meeting until tomorrow. Is this government, and by the way, nobody is more praiseworthy of their negotiating position in Brussels than me, absolutely. But is this government beginning to look a little bit accident-prone?
Boris Johnson's always been accident-prone, hasn't he, Nigel? We've always known that. When he was mayor, he was accident-prone. When he was foreign secretary, he was accident-prone. I had a sneaking sympathy for him over not going to the floods, but he shot himself in the foot by going to the flood zones before the election with his mop because he was seeking votes. It looked like he didn't care after the election when he didn't go to the floods. We now know that he didn't really want to see the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sajid Javid, resign. But again, it was that man Cummings wanted to put his own advisors with the Chancellor of the Exchequer. That was unfortunate. But you can make these mistakes at the beginning of a premiership, Nigel. And when you're at the start of a premiership with a majority of 80, if you're going to cause waves, if you're going to cause upsets, do it right at the start. Don't do it at the other end of the political cycle.
So if there's been a shift here, and if Sir Humphrey is not in charge anymore, is Dominic Cummings running the country?
I think he is a bit, yeah.
Right, OK. Well,
and he's unelected. He's unelected. Most people wouldn't know him if he walked into your studio now. He's incredibly powerful. Actually, let's hope it's Boris Johnson running the country with some help from Dominic Cummings.
OK, Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Well, that was Andrew Pearce, consultant editor at the Daily Mail, and, of course, LBC presenter Friday evenings from 6 until 10. And I'm going to ask you, do you think this government is looking a little bit accident-prone? 0345 60 60 973. This is the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 10:15.
LBC.
Our big winter sale with our lowest prices ever ends this Sunday. So for solid hardwood furniture with huge savings and our lowest prices ever on some great products, don't miss the Oak Furnitureland Big Winter Sale. Online and in-store. Ends Sunday.
If you've lost money on a stocks and shares ISA sold by Lloyds or Halifax, you may be due thousands in compensation. Text GOOD to 78900 and Goodwin Barrett will explain your options.
If you're an EU citizen living in the UK, you need to apply to the EU settlement scheme. This means you can continue living and working in the UK and that the rights you currently have will be protected, including access to healthcare, benefits and pensions. You need to apply even if you have permanent residence. To find out more and apply, visit gov.uk/EU settlement scheme. Irish citizens and those with valid indefinite leave don't need to apply.
Hey, Harry. Hello, mate. Who do you think will win the football later?
It's a tough one to call, but I would say one thing. Ignore all them TV pundits in their fancy suits. Sorry, son. Listen, if you want a sure winner, put your money on... Sorry, I've got to run. Sanders back and I forgot to take the bins out.
Listen to Harry and make your best bet with BetVictor. 18 plus, please gamble responsibly.
With school runs costing from as little as 1p per mile, the electric car is now the car. Search Go Ultra Low to find out more. Cost based on economy 7 and may vary.
Keep coming. Yeah, bit more.
At Hey Car, you'll find the best used cars all in one place. Every car is quality checked and comes with a warranty. So finding your perfect used car is easy. You just need somewhere to park it.
Back. Whoa. Yeah, great. Stop.
To find your perfect used car, search Hey Car.
You can always trust that song about a little shark to get the kids in the bath. But all it takes is a bit of faulty plumbing to set off the bedtime waterworks. Thankfully, at trustedtrader.com, you can hunt out plenty of vetted, reviewed, reliable professionals in an abundance of trades. Like a plumber who'll rescue bath time. And just like that, it's safe to go back in the water.
TrustedTrader.com. Can you hear that? That's your money, ticking along, going nowhere. At Hargreaves Lansdowne, we'll help you switch your money on. And you'll join over 1 million people who trust us with their investments. We can help you make your money work harder too. Find out how you can switch your money on with a stocks and shares ISA from Hargreaves Lansdowne. Visit hl.co.uk. Investing puts your capital at risk. You could get back less than you invest.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Rutland was in charge of a department that leaked against the Home Secretary and the government. Therefore, whether he did or did not, he's responsible for intentionally damaging the Home Secretary, says Jim. And, you know, last week's newspapers were full of stories that Priti Patel was bullying. I mean, the idea that, and it may not have been Sir Philip, but the idea that somebody in the Home Office was not briefing against the Home Secretary pretty aggressively last week. Just look at the Times front pages. We saw last week what was really going on. Now, he says that she's been shouting. So what? She's been swearing. So what? And she's been belittling people. That's different. That is different, because you can have an argument in an office. You know, you want something to be done, it's not been done, or you think someone's obstructing you, you're going to shout a bit. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Belittling people is not good. So, you know, if there's any truth in that, that's not good. But generally, it sounded like one long whinge. Now, on the proposal, yesterday, of course, was the 29th of February. And I get here, Nigel, am I the only one who thinks that Boris's partner may have proposed to him yesterday and that's why the news was announced? Yeah, traditionally, this is the day going back in time when women propose to men rather than the other way round. However, the truth of whoever you are that have sent that message, the truth of it is we've learnt that, in fact, the proposal and the engagement took place when they were in the Caribbean over the Christmas period. Let's take some calls. Let's get some views. Is this government looking a bit accident-prone? Dominic is calling from Colchester. Dominic, good morning.
Hi, Nigel. I must admit, I really love you. I love the position you've taken on most things, but on this Patel thing, I think that you are out of sync with the workplace. So I'll explain. I have been freelance or a consultant for the last 20 years, and I work for large companies, for the largest companies, right? And when I work for them, every 3 months or every 6 months, depending upon the organisation, I have to do compulsory anti-bullying training. As you know, and I'm an IT consultant, right? Yeah. And if somebody bullies in the workplace, in most of these companies, they will get a warning. It will be put on their record, and they will probably not be able to get a promotion for a certain amount of time. The more senior they are, the more serious it is, right? So that has changed over the last 20 years, and to this extent now, where I am going on training all the time, as is everybody else. So the idea that you can have someone who is a minister who swears in meetings.
Well, of course they do, Dominic. Dominic, come on. Come on.
I am telling you that I have seen people's careers destroyed recently because they just used a 4-letter word, right? It doesn't happen nowadays. Maybe that's a political correctness which I don't like, but the idea my point is that the Mrs. Patel will have to take this same mandatory training. She will be told...
Well, Dominic, just 1 second. She has not actually had the chance to defend herself agast this, so let's just...
Agree.
Let's make that clear.
I totally agree, and if she hasn't done it, it's unfair. But what you're saying is, he should get over it. And I'm just saying that everybody, and including me, gets sent on training that's... You're told, you do that and you're going to get fired. You're going to be marched out the door. And everybody has that training thrown at them all the time now. So someone who's not clever enough or someone who thinks that those rules don't apply to them is asking for it, basically. And I don't agree with those rules in the first place. I think it's terrible that that's the way the workplace has gone. But Dominic, that is the workplace.
Okay, take a scenario, right? A high-pressure business. A decision has to be made. So it could be, and I'm sort of going to talk about this world for a moment. It can be, for example, when I was, involved in European election campaigns or general election campaigns over the last decade and more. And if I'd said to somebody who was a press officer, look, can you put this out? And they put it out, and they put it out wrong. What should I say? Well, never mind. Oh, well, that's absolutely marvellous, isn't it? I mean, Dominic, in a circumstance like that, I'm going to have a pretty sharp word with the individual that's got it wrong. Now, I will, of course, at the end of the day, buy them a pint of something, but would it be unreasonable for me to be upset and angry if someone makes a mistake?
No, it wouldn't. And to tell you the truth, it does depend upon whether someone is your peer. But when someone is at the very top of an organisation, and let's say they behave very badly to, say, a secretary. So
okay.
It all depends.
Okay.
And the more senior you are, the more inappropriate it is. And when you become, essentially a minister, at that point it's a different position, and you've got to behave very carefully. Now, obviously, if we're talking about behaviour to this individual who was very senior, I think he's being a bit of a baby.
A little bit precious, yeah.
If he's talking about the way that she's behaving to people who are more junior than he is, which I think is what his statement says, then I think that is an indication of something that is a problem.
Given what you've said about sort of modern corporate culture, and I'm absolutely sure what you say is right. Would it be then appropriate, perhaps, for Priti Patel to respond to this in some way?
I don't know. I don't know, because I think it all comes down to the facts. But my gut instinct, and this is terrible because my gut instinct is that she probably is a fairly forceful personality, and that is maybe being applied, maybe being applied to people who aren't heads of departments or something. And,
all right.
and that's all.
No, listen, Dominic, you've made the point very well. I thank you for making it. Tony is a first-time caller to me from Slough. Good morning, Tony.
Yeah, morning, Nigel. On the basis that myself and the majority of people I knew only voted for Boris because the alternative was worse.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it is true, unfortunately. I mean, they didn't really have a massive amount of talent, the Conservatives, and it also hid during a lot of the election. I mean, I voted to leave anyway.
Yeah.
That's my background, and I've held that view since, the sort of 80s. But having said that, we did, everyone I know just couldn't vote for Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party, so we didn't really have any alternative. But we knew down the line, Boris doesn't really do detail. That's the only issue with him. He wasn't on his brief when he was a minister himself. And he's got a lot of people, just sort of yes people, surrounded by a lot of yes people now.
And is that why Tony, why the accidents are starting to happen?
I just don't think he's on top of it, to be quite honest. I think things are going to get worse as some of the issues sort of come to the fore, unfortunately. But we didn't really have a lot of choice, did we, at the election? The Liberal Democrats were really a bit of a joke.
Well, the one thing Boris did say at the election is he'd get Brexit done. And the one thing he did say, and he said at the election, we would not have regulatory alignment. We would get the thing done and dusted in 2020. And even though, Tony, I'm very unhappy about Huawei, and again, I've been back in America hearing from pretty senior lawmakers on that issue. And even though I think HS2 is a complete waste of money, and I think Heathrow, we need some leadership here if we're going to be a global player. But Tony, at least on Brexit, he's getting it right, isn't he?
Yeah, but the only other thing, Nigel, before you go, I mean, we've got judges now sitting there saying, well, you've got this Paris Climate Agreement and, you won't be able to do this. There'll be other things you won't be able to do too. Nothing from Boris on that one. I mean, the Chinese thing, it's madness, to be quite honest.
Tony, it's a Sunday morning, right? And the Prime Minister has announced that he's getting married and is having another child. Say something nice about him, Tony. Go on.
Well, he was my MP when I used to live in Henley, and on a sort of a lower level, he was very, very helpful and did quite a lot for me back in the day. So, good luck to him.
All right. No. We had to end that on a charitable note. Because, hey, Tony, thank you. Hey, and yes, congratulations to Boris Johnson and to Carrie. Yeah, we are happy for them. Andy says, the civil service thought it was untouchable for far too long. Well, Andy, that is exactly my feeling. They've ruled the roost for far too long, and now policies are being put in place that they don't seem to like very much. Now, Morty in London comes at me very differently here, and he says, Nigel, you're disgraceful. You are like adolescent schoolboys slagging off Sir Philip Rutland like that. Well, actually, I think, to be honest, it was Andrew Pearce that used the phrase chinless wonder, but hey. You lot made such a fuss about bullying when Burko did it, but this is no different. I know you won't read this out, but a lot of decent people do not like this accident-prone nationalist government. There's nothing to laugh about. Well, I did read it out, didn't I? Look... I think the previous caller we had, Dominic, who said he works in a lot of big corporate companies, was making quite a valuable point. If somebody in a very powerful position, without any real good reason at all, belittles, attacks, swears directly at somebody in a much lower position, that clearly is wrong and is impolite and wounding and shouldn't happen. But if you're dealing with people who are working roughly on a par with each other, in a stressful environment, trying to get things done, don't tell me in environments like that, people aren't going to raise voices and there isn't going to be a bit of bad language, because I'm sorry, it's the way the world has always been. And on Burko, of course, John Burko himself vehemently denies all of those accusations. Andy in Portsmouth says, Nigel, I am fully behind Priti Patel. It's a breath of fresh air, her way of getting things sorted. What she says goes. These civil servants need to do as they are told. They believe... Well, yes, they've got to become servants. And Andy, this point is important. Who's the master? Who's the servant? Mrs. Thatcher had a pretty robust relationship with the civil service in her time. And as she said, ministers decide. And it looks like Priti Patel is a pretty forceful Home Secretary. And let's just remember for years and years and years, this is a Home Office that's been described as not fit for purpose. Problem after problem after problem, Windrush, many, many other things that we could talk about. And I tell you what, if we've got a Home Secretary who's in there and is actually kicking backsides and making sure things actually get done, and government policy, something upon which they'll be given a big majority by you, the British public, and if she's making sure that is getting implemented, if she upsets one or two senior mandarins, well, I personally couldn't care less. It's 10:30, time for the news with Philip Chrysakos.
Health Secretary Matt Hancock is warning coronavirus is a big challenge, but adds government has a battle plan. Proposals include a so-called war room in the Cabinet Office featuring a team of communication experts to share information on the best ways to stop the illness in the United Kingdom. The Home Secretary is facing pressure to answer questions about the resignation of her most senior official. Priti Patel is yet to publicly respond to Sir Philip Ruttman's claim she orchestrated, in his words, a vicious campaign against him. Services on Northern Rail are back under government control this morning after years of poor performance. The Department for Transport is now running the newly rebranded Northern trains after taking back Arriva's regional licence in January. LBC weather, sunshine and wintry showers, that rain persistent with hill snow in the north, feeling cold, a high of 10 degrees.
This is LBC.
In our secondary schools, the average class size continues to rise. Help your child stand out with Get My Grades, the ultimate online learning platform for English, maths and science, with textbook content, exam-style questions and progress tracking. Try it free at getmygrades.co.uk. Then get your first month for just £1 using code RADIO. Learn the smart way. getmygrades.co.uk. T's and C's apply. Cancel any time or continue at £9 per month.
The Big B&Q 20% off bathroom event is now on. We've huge savings on a range of toilets, basins, baths and furniture, so you can get a great deal on the style that suits you. With 20% off, you can do it when you B&Q it. Offer ends 9th of March, subject to availability, see DIY.com.
Will the retirement you get be the retirement you want? Check your state pension and see how you can build on it with a workplace or other pension. Get to know your pension at yourpension.gov.uk.
Step aside, ma'am. I'll rescue your cat from that medium-sized tree.
Unfortunately, Pension B can't make you superhero confident, but we can transfer most old pensions together into one simple online plan that's managed by one of the world's largest money managers for pension peace of mind.
Ma'am, could you call the fire brigade, please?
Be pension confident. Download the app or visit pensionbee.com to sign up.
Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Capital at risk.
Here's to the ones who make it look easy. The Lewis Hamiltons, the Rory McIlroys, the Virgil van Dijks. They make it look easy, and with Sky Q, we make watching them easy. Get all the sport you love, including the Masters, F1, and Premier League on Sky Sports, and UEFA Champions League and Premier League on BT Sports. Sky Q, all in one place. Easy. Content based on subscription. See sky.com for details.
Choose Swell Heating and you get a lot more than an efficient boiler from top manufacturers like Quista Bosch. There are warranties of up to 10 years, experts to install your boiler, a 24/7 call centre and specialist advice on smart heating technology. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Listen to this. That's the sound of your money doing absolutely nothing. At Hargreaves Lansdowne, we'll help you switch your money on. Over 1 million people trust us with their investments. We can help you make your money work harder too. Find out how you can switch your money on with a stocks and shares ISA from Hargreaves Lansdowne. Visit hl.co.uk. Investing puts your capital at risk. You could get back less than you invest.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Before we get back to the row that's going on in the Home Office and whether this government's looking a bit accident-prone, let's talk about coronavirus. 3 more cases confirmed in the UK, bringing the number to 23. Cobra will meet tomorrow. Already we're told there are plans, for example, if this was to break out in a big way, that health professionals who've been retired would be re-registered. The Foreign Office now giving advice and saying, don't travel to China, South Korea, Iran, or northern Italy, and areas where the epidemic is at its most severe. The question really is, how bad could this get? And are we actually ready for it? Well, joining me this morning, I'm pleased to say, is Chand Nagpal, Chairman of the British Medical Association. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning. Now, just one thing I have to say, that sort of Sunday after Sunday goes by and we sit and talk about this, and it's still, I mean, the good news, presumably, it's still only 23 confirmed cases in this country.
That's right, and I think you're right. We have, up to now, managed to contain the spread of the virus, and that's important to note. Having said that, we must be vigilant. There's no room for complacency, and we know that, remember, the UK is a global hub of international travel, so the situation could change at any moment. So whilst we are putting these efforts to contain, there needs to be, and there are plans to escalate measures should it spread further within the UK.
Yeah, I must admit, I came in through Heathrow Airport this morning and was struck by the sheer mass of humanity arriving from all over the world and congregating very tightly together. The Prime Minister has given us some advice. Let's listen to what Boris recommends we should do.
The most valuable thing we can all do to prevent the spread of coronavirus is to wash our hands for 20 seconds or more with hot water and soap. And that's the best single piece of advice we can give. We will, in the course of the next few days, be issuing further advice about how to respond and how we're going to deal with any potential outbreak of the illness. But as I say, the best thing people can do to prevent the spread of coronavirus is wash your hands.
Is that good advice?
It's certainly sound advice from public health experts as one of the things that we should be doing. And we know that by washing your hands, you are basically getting rid of the virus, which then you wouldn't transmit on when you touch other surfaces or shake someone else's hand. So that's critically important. Having said that, there are other measures too. We know it's important to use a tissue if you sneeze or cough and bin it straight away. Also, of course, at this moment in time, if anyone has returned from an area of high risk or has been in contact with anyone who may have the virus or suspected of having the virus, they need to self-isolate. So the self-isolation measures are really important, and not to walk into your GP surgery or to your casualty and to call NHS 111. So there are a range of measures, but one, of course, is around personal hygiene in washing hands.
You know, one of the things I've taken to doing in the last few years, because I meet a lot of people on some days and shake a lot of hands, and I tend to buy these little bottles of, antibacterial gel, and you sort of wipe your hands. I mean, do they actually work?
Yes, they do work. They do. They have properties to get rid of bacteria and viruses, so they certainly do work. And I believe that the stocks are quite low at the moment.
I know, there's been quite a run on these things, hasn't there?
But everyone should have access to a tap and a soap.
Yes.
But yes, you're right, it does work, and it's something to certainly do, as well as if you have access to washing your hands, you should do that, of course, as the prime way of not spreading the disease.
If things were to go badly wrong, and we obviously hope and pray that they don't, in this country and elsewhere, but if things were to go wrong, and if we were to be confronted with many hundreds of thousands of people, and perhaps 5% of them were really quite ill, could the National Health Service cope with something like this?
Yeah, and it's the right question to ask, because whilst certainly we have maintained that there should not be panic or alarm, we must be prepared for an epidemic. We have to be prepared for a proper an outbreak, as we've seen in some other nations. So the NHS, has not had the sort of capacity to cope with winter pressures. We know that even in December we had record levels of waits in A&E and waits to be admitted to hospital. So we know that. What would need to happen is some pretty significant changes to the way in which which we provide care. For instance, there may be a need to cancel planned non-emergency operations. So patients who may be waiting for a hip operation, unfortunately, that may need to be delayed whilst the NHS gears up, or rather provides care to those who are in urgent need of medical attention due to the virus. So the NHS would have to reshape the way it provides care. We may need to, as you heard I think it was reported in your own programme, the need to bring in a workforce of retired staff.
Yes.
There may need to be more isolation pods in hospitals, probably much greater levels of remote working. So I'm a GP in general practice. We may need to be providing much more in terms of telephone consultations and follow-up on the phone rather than patients necessarily coming into GP surgery. We would need to prioritise care for those who are most vulnerable, that's the elderly and those with pre-existing medical conditions. So the NHS would need to shape up and provide care in a very different way, and there would of course be consequences to the way in which we provide care. So that, I think that's the best answer I can give, but those measures are being discussed as we speak, and rightly so, because we need to be ready.
Absolutely. And finally, Dr. Nagpal, tell me, as a GP in Harrow, how do you assess the public mood? Are they concerned? Are they worried? Are they scared?
I mean, there's a spread of views, and of course there are, for any situation, you have people who can be very, very worried and frightened, and it's important to allay their anxieties. And there are others who may not be quite aware of the potential seriousness and how rapid the situation could change. What we need is a very clear, consistent public message. At the moment, if a patient has any suspicions of either being in contact with the virus or having returned from an area they may be concerned about internationally, what they need to do is ring NHS 111. Do not panic and come to your GP surgery. We've had instances where a patient, so we had last week, one patient attended a GP surgery who may have been infected with the virus and for simply a sick note, and the surgery had to close for the whole day whilst it was being decontaminated.
Yeah.
So these are small measures,
but that's important,
but
isn't
it
it?
really is something we need to put across. We also do need to make sure we look after those patients who are not coming out to their GP surgery, if they are self-isolating, especially if they're older patients. So I think we need a very clear, consistent message. Do not panic, but also make sure that if you are concerned, don't expose yourself to others and call NHS 111.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning here on LBC. Well, that was Dr. Chan Nagpal, Chairman of the British Medical Association and a general practitioner in Harrow, giving us some sensible advice. And, we should be concerned, but not panic. I think that's the message he was given, and I very much got the similar message to that when I was in the USA yesterday, big presidential press conference on this very issue. The one group of people who are most concerned about it would seem, are our financial markets, where we saw a pretty dramatic fall last week, 15% down at times, UK shares last week, even bigger falls in the USA, and we'll see what happens tomorrow morning when they reopen. Back to the government. I'm going to the Isle of Wight to speak to Billy. Good morning, Billy.
Good morning, Nigel. I want to answer the question directly, actually, and provide maybe my own insight as well on a local level, but I actually feel that the government are standing their ground, and I think it's a refreshing change, don't you? I think it's actually nice for a change to see Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings actually saying, look, we're not going to have it. We are elected by the people, and we're going to decide how and when we do things, because, as we all know, officers are not elected. They are there to implement the decisions that those that are elected to do. And if they have a manifesto, then it should absolutely be implemented. Now, I was on a local level, Nigel. I was a town councillor here on the Isle of Wight, and I won't go into where, because then I can't be as honest with you about my experience. But I was called into the office once by one of the officers regarding why I voted against a motion when I said I was going to originally vote for it. And I turned around to him and I said, well, I can do whatever I want. I said, I'm speaking on behalf of my residents, as I'm sure you're aware. And for too long now, the civil service have been in their nice, cosy little corner deciding what can and can't be done. And I think it's a good old change now that Boris is here to actually shake things up a little bit. And I think fair play to him. Now, the civil service are good for certain things, but unfortunately, like a lot of areas, they can sometimes get a little bit out of control. So I say jolly good old Boris for doing it.
And they do have a collective view of the world. I mean, I can tell you, Billy, I'm not suggesting you should, but if you came with me at 8:45 in the morning and we walked down the street outside the Whitehall Departments, and if you saw the sheer level of venom and hostility that's directed at me. I can't think of anywhere in the country I can go and be sworn at more loudly and more directly. So there is a feeling amongst many that the civil service have been a real block to Brexit, and I suspect Priti Patel thinks they may be trying to block her immigration moves. Billy, thank you very much indeed for your call this morning. Alan in Devon says, the government is not accident-prone, but Boris is. His saving grace is Cummings. There we are, a big Don Cummings fan there from Devon. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 10:45.
Leading Britain's conversation, Sheila Fogarty.
That wider public information campaign that's coming, I suspect it is imminent. Tony's call from Coventry. You're not paying any attention at all, are you?
No, none whatsoever. This is a load of rubbish. I'm just going to think I've got the sniffles and just go to work.
The reality is, if it takes hold in big numbers, then other more vulnerable people could die from it.
Sheila Fogarty, Monday to Friday from 1 p.m. on LBC.
LBC, together with Transport for London, are looking into the issue of air pollution in the capital, one of the most significant challenges facing inner and outer London. This week, Nick Ferrari spoke to Hannah, a Londoner who recently made the switch to a more sustainable way of travelling.
Both my fiancé and I invested in a bike.
Right.
I wanted to get fit and cycle to work, and also it's a really lovely commute.
Watch the full interview and find out how you can help clean up London's air at lbc.co.uk.
Jim from Nuneaton writes, you were everything I desired. Perfection. I only had eyes for you, but before I really knew it, you were gone, leaving just an empty box behind. I just want you back. Your 2 juicy patties, crisp lettuce, gherkins, onions, cheese, and my favourite Big Mac sauce.
You can now spend even longer with the taste you love with the Grand Big Mac, but only until the 24th of March. Served after 11 a.m, subject to availability, participating restaurants only.
A change is coming. Millions of people across the UK are realising that if their broadband's out of contract, they could be out of pocket. So it's time to switch and save with Vodafone Superfast Broadband for £21.95 a month. Join the Great British Broadband switch today. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
18-month contract subject to credit check. Publicly available out of contract, non-promotional pricing. Superfast 1, 73% of customers receive sync speeds above 35 megabits per second. See vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
I'm Chris Riccobono, founder of Untuck It. I started Untuck It in 2011 because, like a lot of other guys, I just couldn't find a shirt that looked great untucked. It's a tough style to get right. Untuck It shirts were designed to be worn untucked. They have that just right length and more than 50 fits for tall, short, slim, and bigger guys of every age. Today, we have over 85 stores in America and Canada, and we have just opened in the UK. Visit us at Covent Garden in Westfield, London, or go to untuckit.com. Untuck It, shirts designed to be worn untucked.
New Yakult Light is enriched with vitamin D and E.
Magically placed there by golden sunbeams, carried on the wings of ancient butterflies.
No. They're added by scientists and filled with Yakult's unique bacteria scientifically proven to reach the gut alive. Yakult, a little bottle of science, not magic.
The spacious new Vauxhall Vivaro is big on cargo space, so you won't fill it up as often. It also has class-leading fuel economy, so you, won't fill it up as often. The new Vauxhall Vivaro. Limited stock now available for only £229 a month and $229 initial rental, excluding 20% VAT on a 2-year lease. Other rental periods available. Search Vivaro offer and hurry down to your local retailer. Vauxhall carries British business. Business users only. Initial rental of $228.96 plus 23 months at $228.96. Contract hire on new Vivaro edition L1 H1 1.5 Turbo D 100 PS. 20,000 total contracted miles. Limited availability subject to status. T's and C's 18 plus. Price excludes 20% VAT. You will not own the vehicle. Vauxhall Finance PLC trading as free to move lease.
Can you hear that? That's your money ticking along, going nowhere. At Hargreaves Lansdowne, we'll help you switch your money on. And you'll join over 1 million people who trust us with their investments. We can help you make your money work harder too. Find out how you can switch your money on with a stocks and shares ISA from Hargreaves Lansdowne. Visit hl.co.uk. Investing puts your capital at risk. You could get back less than you invest.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Next week, we have the budget, of course, not being delivered by Sajid Javid, but it's going to be Rishi Sunak delivering this budget. Now, one of the big proposed changes is around IR35 rules. And if you are self-employed, running your own small company, acting at any point as a contractor, this potentially could really affect your life. And I know there are many lobbying the government saying, just hold your horses. We'll explain all of that from 11 o'clock. We'll debate it, we'll talk about it, we'll get your examples of how this could really affect your life. So if you know anybody that is self-employed or acting as a contractor, get them to tune into LBC at 11 o'clock in just 10 minutes' time. Back to the government, back to this big row that's been going on. Now, Patrick in Kidderminster says, we have the British version of clearing the swamp. Priti Patel must be protected and allowed to get the job done. And, you know, this is very much how I feel as well. And frankly, if Priti Patel has shouted at very senior civil servants who were obstructing her, I'm not too worried about that, I've got to tell you. Mark is calling from Sevenoaks. Good morning, Mark.
Hi. I was concerned that the government is becoming accident-prone with this following on from Sajid Javid's resignation.
Yes.
The majority that Boris Johnson has protects him from the Labour Party, but it doesn't protect him from a leadership challenge. And Sajid Javid has already challenged for the leadership in the past. And I think that the more enemies that are made in the party by an attempt to take over, in the sense, by Dominic Cummings, the more likely this sort of challenges to come along. And it makes the government look weak, because it seems that there's a fight going on within it.
Yeah, I mean, to lose a Chancellor is a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. And then a couple of weeks later, to have a Home Secretary embroiled in a big row. So, yeah, it is looking slightly accident-prone. But then maybe if it is a radical transforming government, Mark, we've got to expect one or two of these things.
But the trouble is that the more radical it is, the more enemies it's going to make within the party itself.
Yes,
so, yes. From that point of view,
yes. Although in the end, Mark, all leaders only have a certain shelf life. You know, even Margaret Thatcher, after considerable successes, in the end had upset just too many people. Tony Blair, very intelligently, got out before he reached that stage. I think it's a normal process in politics. But Mark, the point about Sajid Javid is well made. Thank you. And Sajid's out there now, telling the country what his budget would have been. Oh, there were going to be big tax cuts for all of us. It would have been absolutely marvellous. Let's go to Simon in Orpington. Good morning.
Nigel, good morning. And it would appear that the main story of the weekend is a person has an issue with their boss. Well, welcome to most places up and down the country. That is all it is, isn't it, Nigel?
Well, I think it's actually the person that's got an issue with his boss used to be in the position where he was actually the boss, and for once he's being told, no, you're not the boss.
Well, exactly, Nigel. Look, who really knows what goes on between closed doors? But you know what? I don't think most people are interested in the slightest. You know, the Home Secretary is here to keep us safe and control immigration, and that is what she'll be judged on. I would say, however, could you imagine if this was a darling of the left? Could you imagine how the story would be painted? We've got a brown woman forced and bullied by the Pale, Male and Stell Brigade.
Oh, that would be dreadful, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, look, we are not, Simon, going to defend bullying. We are not going to defend belittling, particularly of minors, people with much lower jobs in offices. But if it's a row between Priti Patel, and senior civil servants, and Des here says to me, Ms. Patel resists the woke indoctrination. Applause from me. Yeah, look, if she's taking on the top bods in the civil service, I'm very happy with it. But, you know, Simon, the basic point I was making was Boris has lost the Chancellor. And he's now got a Home Secretary involved in a row. It's not government as usual, is it?
No, it's not, Nigel. And you know what? I think, obviously, Boris prospered from a hopeless opposition and the chance to implement a vote that hadn't been implemented. So that's where he got his huge majority from. I do think, though, what's happened is the Conservative Party has gone away from its underpinning philosophy of conservatism, and now they're trying to govern with policies, and that's where I think it's going wrong. Look, some of these policies are not conservative. Conservative is very simple. It's about the family first. That's the foundation of society. It's about fiscal prudence. Well, we're not seeing that, are we, with HS2?
And Simon, is the Conservative Party the party of business, and in particular small business?
Well, again, Nigel, this remains to be seen, and it'd be interesting to hear your discussion come up at 11 on the IR35.
Exactly.
As you know, the Conservative has become, or politics has become, about corporatism and cronyism, and that's what I actually want to move away from.
No, I agree with you, Simon, I do, and it's going to be a very, very interesting chat we have with many callers from 11 o'clock this morning. Simon, thank you. Going to go to Jennifer in Ealing. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning, Nigel.
So, are you behind Priti Patel on this?
Yes, I am, because for a long time everybody says that, you know, the country, the law and order, etc., is, gone by the board, as you might say, and directly someone comes in to try and turn things around, there's a problem. And the problem being is that these people have been used to running these departments as they want to run them. And when they got someone in who's got ideas that could work, but it's going to make people perhaps feel a bit uncomfortable, they don't like it. And unfortunately, for a long time we've had the Conservatives in power, in government, but Labour in power. And most of these civil servants are affiliated to Labour. So they're trying to sort of scupper the ship, if you like.
Civil servants? No, Jennifer, you're wrong. Civil servants are entirely neutral. Don't you understand that?
You mean like the councils and the schools and the universities? They're all completely
don't
neutral
start me on some of that stuff. No, Jennifer, there is clearly something of a cultural war that has just started, I think, between this government with Dominic Cummings in a powerful position and much of our civil service. Jennifer, thank you for your call. Richard from Exeter makes a very good point, and one that was being discussed in the LBC newsroom this morning. He says, interesting to note that when a civil servant decided to go public with his resignation, his first thought was to call the BBC to announce it. Well, Richard, I think they're all a little bit peas in the same pod, is what some would say. One more caller on this issue. It's Chris from Richmond. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Nigel. So you say bullying is not something we can condone, but it's okay if it's a senior civil servant, but not if it's a junior person.
No, Chris, hang on. I didn't say bullying. I said if you're having a big debate about getting something done and things are not being done to your liking, raised voices and a bit of bad language is how the world works, is what I said.
Not really, Nigel. Really?
What?
Tell me, what is the biggest single cause of workplace absence in this country? What is it? Mental health. Mental health, Nigel. It's all over the business agenda. So it's okay to scream and shout and bully. Is that the message our government should send to people? Because that's essentially what you're saying.
I will give you one more go at this and then I'm going to cut you off, all right? I said bullying is not good. I said, but between people who are roughly on equal levels, in a heated situation, in pressured environments, people swear and shout. It's normal. It always has been and it always will be.
Well, I disagree. I've worked in very high-pressure environments, Nigel, and including big four accountancy firms. I've worked in big corporates, and I've never had a boss that sworn at me. And if they did, I would go straight to the HR department. It's not acceptable in the modern workplace, Nigel. And you lived in a different world to the rest of us, I'm afraid. The world has moved on.
Has it?
1970s. Yes, it has.
Well, I wasn't. Well, I'm sorry, Chris, but I can promise you right now, in every political office I've ever worked in and ever seen, people do get upset and angry with each other, and there are moments of great stress. And yes, not everybody, as I've said. I've never heard Anne Widdecombe swear once when I worked with her, but generally bits of bad language get used. Chris, thank you, and well, maybe he's right about the corporate world these days. I don't know. I suspect perhaps there's some truth in it. OK, so budget next week. A lot of people out there, millions of people out there who act as sole traders, they're self-employed, they go to their high street accountant to get advice, and we're going to have with us this morning Martin Levin, a high street accountant who specialises in tax. We'll talk a bit about broadcasters too. You know, there's some big tax changes coming. They could affect you very adversely. 0345 6060 973. We'll take your calls on that in a moment.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, government is outlining its so-called battle plan to deal with the spread of coronavirus across the United Kingdom. Proposals include the emergency registration of doctors and health professionals who've retired. Rules could also be relaxed around school class sizes if teachers are absent or are forced to self-isolate. There are now 23 confirmed cases of COVID-19 on these shores. Internationally, more than 85,000 people are infected in more than 60 countries. Professor Paul Hunter, who's working with the World Health Organization on a prevention strategy, has told LBC a jab is months away.
We're actually quite close to having a vaccine produced, and probably we've actually got one already. In historical terms, we are very close to a vaccine because it used to take us up to 15 years to have an effective vaccine produced. Here we'll probably have one maybe by the end of this year, early next year, that would be suitable for routine use.
Priti Patel is facing calls to appear in Parliament to answer questions about the resignation of her most senior official at the Home Office. Sir Philip Rutman stood down yesterday accusing the Home Secretary of orchestrating, in his words, a vicious campaign against him. Ms Patel, who is yet to publicly respond to Sir Philip's claims, has previously denied allegations of bullying. 2 teenage boys have been arrested on suspicion of murder after another, aged 16, was stabbed to death in Coventry. He was attacked in the Stoke area of the city last night. The 2 suspects being questioned are 17 years old. Services on Northern Rail are now known as Northern Trains from this morning and are under government control. Arriva lost its franchise licence for the line in January after years of poor performance. A panel of political leaders in the north of England are now advising the government on the running of the network. Steve Headley from the RMT Union wants ministers, though, to go further.
We have billions of pounds going in the shareholders' pockets, and only 4% is spent on other things like wages or investment in the railway. So what we have here is a taxpayer may as well just cut out the middleman and send these private train operators a big massive cheque every year.
£25,000 has been donated to people affected by flooding in East Yorkshire. Drax Power Station has sent the money after the River Aire burst its banks as Storm Jorge hit across this weekend. In West Yorkshire, the train line there between Sheffield and Huddersfield is blocked today after a landslide. Cricket, the last few moments, England have beaten the West Indies by 46 runs in Sydney to reach the semi-finals of the Women's T20 World Cup. LBC weather, sunshine and wintry showers. That rain persistent with hill snow across the north, feeling cold. A high of 10 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
Welcome to Virgin Atlantic. Please take a moment to study the drinks menu in the seat pocket in front of you. Be sure to finish your drink before helping your companions with theirs. Do check that any reading material you're hoping to finish out of boredom is safely stowed away. You won't be needing it once you've seen the movie selection. And don't be alarmed by the unusually warm customer service from our crew. It's typical for our airline.
Virgin Atlantic. Fly amazing from just £273 return. Flights from April. Conditions and date exclusions apply. See virginatlantic.com.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
So when is somebody a genuinely self-employed contractor offering out his or her services, or when are they really employees of a company? And on a very sort of high-profile level, we've seen some broadcasters over the course of the last couple of years who've really fallen foul of this. The most recent one being TV presenter Eamon Holmes, who worked for ITV, and he's lost a case against HM Revenue and Customs because they say really he was an employee of ITV and that he was using a vehicle, a company vehicle, as a way, of perhaps not paying as much tax as he would if it was fully on PAYE. But it's not just relatively highly paid broadcasters this affects. I mean, for example, one of the things that really first put me onto this was a letter, a sort of really quite upset letter I got from someone saying, 15 years ago, Nigel, I started my own niche company providing IT and project control services. I've worked over the years for 25 different companies. They are my clients. I voted Conservative in the election because I thought they were the party of business. He says, my current client now refuses to work with limited companies. They have put a blanket ban on them, and indeed other firms that I do work with. So this is a small guy running his own business, doing work for big companies, and he says the other big firms are also saying the same, so it's now impossible for me to get work via my company. And he goes on to make the point, that he doesn't get health provision, doesn't get pensions, doesn't get any protection of any kind at all. He's running his own business and he's incurring costs in running that business. And if the firms he worked for now say they're not going to operate for him on that basis, he's got a problem. And I think, from what I can pick up on this and other tax issues, there are some real concerns. Let's try and boil this down. Let's try and understand exactly what is going on. And I'm joined this morning by Mark Levin, High Street accountant, Institute of Taxation, Harrow. Martin, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
So, at the moment, it is my responsibility, if I'm the person with a limited company and I'm providing, I could be an electrician, I could be providing IT services, and I designate that I'm providing that service, and you as the company pay me the amount plus VAT if I'm VAT registered. But all the rules are about to change, aren't they, in a couple of weeks?
Dramatically so. It's actually vice versa. The responsibility is now on the top of the pyramid. It doesn't matter how many people are in that pyramid. You might have an umbrella organisation employing lots of subcontractors. I'm sure we'll come on to umbrella companies a bit later on. But the whole idea was that you then turned round and said, if you wanted your money, you then went to probably the human resources of the big employer. The big employer, let's talk about being the main people at the top. They're the giants of the world. Banks, building societies, big builders and people like that. We'll put the BBC on one side because that's a separate issue. And they now have the responsibility of ascertaining who are we paying this money to? Are they really self-employed? Is it a limited company? Are we liable for national insurance? And here is where the bum is going to be bitten. Because from the 6th of April, national insurance will bite in and pay-as-you-earn tax will be deducted if the main employer decides that they're glorified employees. Now, no matter how many steps that you take, and you can take steps, you can actually try and ascertain your own tax status by a tool. Initial letters are CEST, which stands for Check Employment Status Tax. It's a bit flawed, and it's been around for some time. It's on the Revenue website. It was updated in about November. But there are flaws in it that can be challenged. So what you need to do, if you're the person that's got your own one-man band, personal service company, I'll try and avoid initial letters.
But if I am, a one-man company, or perhaps a two-man company providing IT services, and I go to, a major company and I go to them once, twice a year and I update that computer system, whatever I do, and I submit a bill. It's a couple of grand each time or whatever it is. It's then, as it is now, my responsibility to sort that out with the taxman. But if that then becomes the responsibility of the company, as it will, from the 6th of April, they will just say, do you know what, we can't be bothered with this.
Correct.
We don't want years down the line to find out that actually we're in trouble. So they're just going to deduct national insurance and PAYE, and that's going to leave a lot of self-employed people much worse off, isn't it?
It is indeed. And here's the irony: when these rules were first put out inside the Inland Revenue, about a third of their subcontractors quit.
Really?
Yep, because they found out they were going to be caught. So in simple money terms, it's a negotiation between you as the contractor providing the service and the final employer. What's the price for the job? A lot of people have estimated you need to put your prices up between 20 and 30%.
Gosh.
So that your take-home pay is going to be the same before the 5th of April 2020 as it is going to be afterwards. Now, if anybody gets it wrong in this chain, talk about a chain, let's think about a relay race where somebody starts it off, passes it on to somebody else. That's how the chain of work works. If you get it wrong and the taxman hasn't got his money, he can go back right to the very top and ask for that money. So the point that you made about the top man deducting tax and national insurance...
I can't be bothered with this.
Oh, yeah.
Why have the liability? Is there any chance... is there any chance the government could change their mind in the
very
budget
much so.
next week?
There was a protest last week, and the government's announcement at the back end of last week was, we're going to have a soft landing, whatever that is. No hard reaction in the next 12 months. Which is another way of kicking it into touch.
Yes.
If you ever notice these questions go backwards and forwards, you get one answer, noted.
But it would be fair to say, wouldn't it, Martin, that some people have actually misused this system because effectively, let's just give the example. Let's give the example of somebody, it could be a broadcaster, for argument's sake, somebody whose only source of income has come from one company to whom they provide work and services, and then they do it through a limited company, and they're able, tax-wise, to avoid quite a bit of national insurance or whatever. Isn't the truth of it, some people have been abusing this system?
There'll always be people abusing it. If you look at the sign in the parks that says, please keep off the grass, people will always walk on the grass.
Yes, they will. They will. I get that. Now, I get this on Twitter. I get one issue with being inside IR35 is travel costs and subsistence can no longer be claimed. I live in Rugby. It's 12,000 quid a year for parking and train to go down to London. That's a huge hit. And will demobilise a skilled niche workforce. So she makes the point, if you're commuting down from Rugby every day to London and you work for several companies, you're not an employee of anybody, you work for several companies and you earn money from them at the moment, you can offset your travel costs against it. It's a fair point, isn't it?
Absolutely fair point, and that's one of the classic ones. The whole idea of travel costs has been contested over many, many decades with the taxman. And there's a case called the Recorder of Portsmouth. He lived in London, but had a day job down at Portsmouth at the same time, had his other self-employment as a lawyer in London. He decided that he wanted to claim London to Portsmouth deduction. But because it was an employment that he accepted in Portsmouth, it was held that he couldn't deduct it. But that was a question of the point of payment was an employment. If the point of payment is self-employment, you can deduct it, which in your instance it was. And it's always better to have more than one person as your customer.
Yeah, and there must be a lot of you out there who, either you or someone in your family acts as a contractor and you will be desperate, I think, to get these rules changed. Let's take a caller. Let's take a real-life example. Let's speak to Bennett in Edinburgh. Good morning to you.
Oh, thanks very much for having me on the programme. Yeah, I'm not an expert in IR35 at all. I work as a contractor on and off, doing that sort of thing, but it's been made perfectly clear for me as people are now recruiting, as the agencies understand what's going on and the end clients understand what's going on, that actually it's just totally economic. So from my own point of view, the industry that I work in, 90% of that work would be in the southeast, but I maintain a household elsewhere. The work, if you take on that work, doesn't allow you to work for other people. It's intense. You work for a 6-week period of intensity and long shifts and that sort of thing. And the whole economics of flights, travel, hotels, food and everything like that just means that it's not even worth me considering it anymore. And that's a huge change. And in fact, speaking personally, and I know other people are in this situation that live outside the southeast, it really cuts off that line of work for me unless I was to relocate.
Because tax-wise, you'd just be so much worse off.
Yeah, I'd be so much worse off. You know, the expenses involved in working in that way.
Well, the one solution we talked about a few minutes ago with Martin Levin is you could put your prices up 20-30%.
Well, I mean, that may well be what's going to happen. I can't see that that's provided that people are prepared to pay that. But the point I wanted to make is we've got this whole idea of the Northern Powerhouse and we're bringing in HS2 and everything like that. Well, there's a good reason why people live elsewhere in the country. It's much cheaper. It's an awful lot of hassle when you don't go to your home every night because you're away for 6 weeks. But the difficulty is what this is doing is actually focusing, the people that really do the work in the country. It precludes them from working in the southeast, and there's a trouble with that in the sense that if you're already based in the southeast, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference for you. If you're elsewhere and you're working, you're having to go to the southeast.
And you give that example from Edinburgh, and we had a text not long ago from a lady in Rugby. So, no, that's a very interesting point you make. Thank you, Bennett, for making it. Nigel, on PAYE, you'll pay between 30 and 40% tax to HMRC. When I was an IT consultant, I paid VAT, corporation tax, self-assessment and dividend tax. HMRC will potentially now be getting less taxes. How is this good for the country? I'm not sure quite how I assess that. But what you may well get is a lot of young people, and this is what worries me. A lot of young people now have set up their own little limited companies or acting as sole traders because a lot of young people are in the new technology game. They've got their own particular skill sets. They go out as contractors, and I actually see, if these tax changes do go through, I see this as a disincentive for young people to go out and set up on their own. I don't like that. Coming back to this in a moment, but for now, it's the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, and it's 11:15.
This is LBC.
The Big B&Q 20% off bathroom event is now on. We've huge savings on a range of toilets, basins, baths and furniture, so you can get a great deal on the style that suits you. With 20% off, you can do it when you B&Q it. Offer ends 9th of March, subject to availability, see DIY.com. Listen to this. That's the sound of your money doing absolutely nothing. At Hargreaves Lansdowne, we'll help you switch your money on. Over 1 million people trust us with their investments. We can help you make your money work harder too. Find out how you can switch your money on with a stocks and shares ISA from Hargreaves Lansdowne. Visit hl.co.uk. Investing puts your capital at risk. You could get back less than you invest.
Discover Ireland's Wild Atlantic Way with Aer Lingus. Fly London to the west of Ireland from $32.99 each way as part of a return trip. Enjoy breathtaking scenery, taste fresh seafood and explore wild coastal walks. Smart enjoys a short break in Ireland. Smart flies Aer Lingus. Book now at airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
The thing that I would say to anybody that was thinking about a job in social care is go for it. I'm Georgia. I love social care because you never know what each day will bring. It's emotional sometimes, highs and lows, but no 2 days are the same. I love the work, yeah. It makes me feel really good as a person. We make people smile every day.
If you want to make a difference to your life, care for someone else's, visit everydaysdifferent.com to find jobs in adult social care.
Are you sitting comfortably? Is your roof cascading light in the space around you? Loving that feeling as you glide over a bumpy road? If you are, you're almost certainly experiencing the advanced comfort of a Citroën SUV. If you're not, take one for a comfort drive. A test drive, but way more comfortable. Citroën C3 Aircross and C5 Aircross SUV range. Now with £500 off list price and 3 year 0% APR finance. Ooh la la! Citroën. Citroën UK Limited, acting as a credit broker, not a lender. Conditional sale. Terms, eligibility criteria and conditions apply. Guarantee may be required. PSA Finance UK Limited, participating dealer stock vehicles ordered between the 3rd and the 29th of February and registered by 31st of March.
If you're planning on driving on the A501 Euston Road over the next few weeks, there are lane closures around the junction with Churchway while we carry out essential safety improvements. Works are due to continue for another few weeks. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
I'm Captain Obvious, and every day people book trips on Hotels.com that you will later hate like. A hate like is when you like Becky's picture of another waterfall even though you kind of hate it because she's there and you're on the train next to a mouth breather. Don't hate like Becky's trip. Book your own with Hotels.com. Hotels.com. Be there, do that.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
So the tax and national insurance responsibility shifts from the individual contractor providing the service to the company that is taking the service. And that means a lot of big firms are saying to one-man bands all over the country, hey, if you come into business for us, we're just going to take away. We're going to take away PAYE. We're going to take away national insurance. And that leaves a lot of people out there who are running their own companies with genuinely legitimate expenses. If they can't offset them, they are going to be worse off by 20 to 30% every year. Now, there is another argument here, of course, and I'm going to put this to High Street accountant Martin Levin. You know, some people feel differently. Now, Tim here says, the company I work for employs freelancers who were disguised as full-time employees, paying only 11% tax, unlike the full-time employees. And he says freelancers are not paying their fair share of tax, and therefore I'm all in favour of IR35.
What do you decide is a fair rate of tax, though? Because these guys might have very expensive expenses.
But if somebody effectively goes to the same place of work every day. Right.
Now we're there.
So there are some naughties here, aren't there?
Yes, very much so, yeah. This is what that tool that I talked about earlier, CEST.
Yep.
And one of the conditions there was exactly that. Are you coming to the same place of work every day?
Yes.
This is where the BBC got caught. And we're going back 4 decades here from where it first came about. And this was a dinner party where the chairman of the Revenue, as it then was, and the chairman of the BBC were around the table. And they said, well, most of our guys come in, use our equipment, and they're self-employed. And that was in the mid-70s. So that was where the baby was first born.
And if the taxman does find against you, how far can they go back?
20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
I have to say, I didn't realise that.
No. I can understand why you didn't realise it. Usually it's 6 years.
That's what I thought, 6, 7 years.
Yeah. When self-assessment came out in 1997, it was a question of done and dusted, that year is closed off. And you're thinking, that is wonderful. I mean, a number of times I protected my clients at that time by making sure the revenue wouldn't go back. Now they've come back and they said, careless. They've had these definitions. Are you negligent, careless, fraud or willful default?
I'm really shocked by that. I have to say, in my years in business before politics, I used to keep the stuff for 7 years and then burn it all.
Didn't we all? It was lovely, yeah.
I look forward to burning it all, you know, and thinking the taxman was off my back. Let's go to Lee, our next caller from Prescott, up on Merseyside. Lee, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel.
So how could these rules affect you, Lee?
So Monday to Friday, I'm employed by the NHS, so that's PAYE. However, over the weekend, I work for the local out-of-hours GP service as a nurse practitioner. So I invoice them directly. I don't go through an agency. I'm not a limited company. I'm just a one-man band, really. So I'm not sure whether the work I do over a weekend will come under IR35 or not.
Yes, it would have done, but it would have come out in about 2 years ago when IR35 was extended. And the test for that was if you were paid out of the public purse. It was principally aimed at the BBC. But then suddenly you realise that if a government department such as the NHS or anybody else would have been paying you, schools was another one, then they had to establish, or you had to prove to them, using this CEST tool, CEST, that you were a self-employed person. Now, of course, it's going to be slightly different. To me, it's still much the same. Go on the Revenue's website, answer their questions on the CEST, which is flawed because it doesn't cover things like mutuality of obligation. That's a question of they offering you an employer or contractor offers you work and you can accept it or decline it. Now, you should have done this before, printed it off and sent it to the payroll department or the human resources department so they had something on their books to cover them in case of errors in the past. Now, from the 6th of April, they will probably be chasing you for it, in which case you can still do it. There's a warning that if there's a word that I've seen, game the CEST tool, it's null and void, all bets are off. But it's in your interest to turn around and print off all the answers that they've got to prove that you're still self-employed, because your out-of-hours GP service would ask you to do different things. Now, as soon as you become self-employed, effectively your home is your base for operations. So as soon as you leave home, you're tax deductible, as opposed to being in employment, because you're self-employed for this weekend work.
So
okay.
Lee is a sole trader, effectively.
He is a sole trader, yes, which is nothing unusual. He's got a full-time job, pay as you earn with the National Health, okay, and then he's got this self-employment as doing GP relief services, in which case he can deduct expenses. It doesn't work through a limited company, so it makes it much cleaner for him to work out his taxes. But the problem is going to be proving that any payments that he gets from the GP relief service are kosher and outside of IR35. And from what you tell me, you can be outside of 35 if you do this.
OK, Lee, are you reassured by that?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much indeed. There must be a lot of people in his position.
Very much so. Yes.
They've got a particular skill set. They do their 40 hours a week, but they want to earn money at weekends or whatever it is. Must be a lot of people in that position, and he's not doing anything wrong. But I wonder how many people there are who just aren't going to know what to do in a couple of weeks' time. I mean, how many people do you think this could affect potentially?
Loads. Journalists often ask me this question, what's the figure? And the answer is, I don't have a crystal ball.
No.
I mean, the question that I always answer is, there's those that don't know and those that don't know they don't know. Well, you've heard that before, haven't you?
No. Well, that's right. And actually, if you get a change as fundamental as this, you could well find lots of people who are potentially in trouble and don't even know they're in trouble until it's a bit late.
And they come back and they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
I know, but this is scaring people. This is scaring people, and because it's the reason that people use accountants, I guess, because to try and do this on your own would be pretty much impossible. Kerry is calling from Winsford. Good morning, Kerry.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for taking my call, Nigel.
Not one bit. So give us your situation, Kerry.
Okay, so I've just at the beginning of starting up a business, an auditing business, and it has the potential quite easily to grow into quite a big business that would employ lots of people. But at the moment, I am working as a contractor, so I'm going to put a stop to it because, and I think this is the thing, is this going to stop a lot of entrepreneurs who would start up as a single individual in a business and then accidentally it would just grow because it has the ability to do that. Is that going to stifle this now?
Well, Kerry, my worry is that if a lot of these big firms say, the hell with it, we don't want the responsibility, we don't want the tax man coming back years later saying, actually, you should have assessed this contractor differently, they were only doing stuff for you, they weren't doing stuff elsewhere, and so if lots and lots of big firms say, the hell with it, we're just not prepared to entertain it, I think it will stifle entrepreneurial flair in our country. What do you say, Martin?
Oh, yes, that's the whole idea of it. over the years, I've acted for an awful lot of people in the construction industry, and their attitude has been, I'm great on the tools, but lousy in the office. And there you got it summed up in a while. Because the unfortunate thing about it is the government decides that all businesses can be the size of the huge public limited companies. An ex-Speaker of the House of Commons, Sir Bernard Weatherall, in the 70s said 95% of businesses in this country employ 5 or fewer employees, yet the government treats them all the size of ICI, who were the giants at the time. I've asked my Institute of Tax Harrow and head office, has that figure changed? And through the Office of Responsibilities, a chap there, it hasn't really moved. People who employ 5 or fewer employees are still the huge majority in the country.
Absolutely.
These are the guys where the seed corn is, entrepreneur spirit, and they're the ones that are creating the wealth. You don't tax people or kill off the wealth creators of this country. You encourage them.
And Kerry, is it time the government listened to this?
It most certainly is. And just as one other comment, and I won't name names, but there are a few big companies I know who employ a lot of contractors, some in construction and some in telecoms. And I know for a fact, because I have people who I know work in those areas, they've just put a blanket ban. It's a blanket no.
That was the letter I read out at the top, the blanket ban that is coming in from big companies. Kerry, you're absolutely right. This needs to be rethought. Just give us, before we go to the news, why the government wants to do this. What's in it for the government in turning these rules around the other way, Martin Levin?
Cash flow advantage, because if they get more people under pay-as-you-earn, then they will get monthly pay-as-you-earn receipts and employers' national insurance coming in much quicker than if you did self-employment and filed once a year and balanced up at the 31st of January.
So cash flow's their main...
Yeah, and their estimate is 400 million quid has been lost this way. But I would challenge that, because who knows what is lost? Like the black economy, figures are invented, nobody challenges them.
No.
I'm looking at you, Nigel.
No. I know. In a moment, we will talk about Storm George. That after Storm Dennis and Storm Kira and still flooding in parts of our country. We'll talk to John Ketley in a moment. But for now, you're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 11:30 and time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Health officials in Scotland are now testing people for coronavirus if they've flu-like symptoms and not having visited any affected areas. It's as government says it's setting up a so-called war room in the Cabinet Office to help stop the outbreak of coronavirus. In Iran, it's reporting 11 new deaths from the infection, taking the total to 54. 2 17-year-old boys are being questioned on suspicion of murder after another of 16 was stabbed to death in Coventry. He was found collapsed in the Stoke area of the city last night. England's cricketers are into the semi-finals of the Women's T20 World Cup. In the last half an hour in Sydney, they've beaten West Indies by 46 runs. LBC weather, sunshine and wintry showers. That rain persistent with hill snow across the north. Feeling cold, a high of 10 degrees.
LBC.
Word in the woods is that 3 little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with a big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies!
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
30 years ago, George Bush Sr. announced the dawn of a new world order. And if you look at the news today, it seems that order is coming undone. I'm Thomas Small, a historian and Middle East expert, and with Eamon Dean, I host a podcast called Conflicted. Eamon, what are you exactly?
I used to be a jihadist, an MI6 spy, and now I'm a security consultant.
To hear us connect the dots behind recent events, listen to Conflicted wherever you get your podcasts.
Can you hear that? That's your money, ticking along, going nowhere. At Hargreaves Lansdowne, we'll help you switch your money on. And you'll join over 1 million people who trust us with their investments. We can help you make your money work harder too. Find out how you can switch your money on with a stocks and shares ISA from Hargreaves Lansdowne. Visit hl.co.uk. Investing puts your capital at risk. You could get back less than you invest.
Want an easier way to run your business and take payments? You want Square.
Whatever your business, sync it all together seamlessly with Square's integrated point-of-sale software, hardware and e-commerce tools to make sure everything's square at the end of the month. Square is there whether you're taking payments for Square meals or Square extensions, squaring off your account, squaring up with your supplier, trading in Cathedral Square or invoicing clients in Leicester Square. With no long-term contracts, no wonder millions of businesses around the globe have gone Square. Visit square.com/UK to learn more. And go Square. Authorised by the Financial Conduct Authority for the provision of payment services.
Don't miss some of our lowest prices ever in the big winter sale. Only at Oak Furnitureland, online and in-store. Must end Sunday.
How much money will you get when you sell your car?
11,000.
12,000.
12,600.
£13,000. Wouldn't it be great if you could see offers from online buyers and specialist car dealers all in one place? Motorway.co.uk is the comparison site to sell your car. With Motorway, it's easy to compare offers and find your best deal. You could get up to £1,000 more. Go to motorway.co.uk, the easy way to sell your car for more.
Motorway.co.uk. This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, weekends in February appear to have been just endless gales and rain. We had Kira, we had Storm Dennis, and yesterday's Storm George. It seems never, ever to end. And joining me to discuss this is legendary weatherman John Ketley. John, good morning.
Yes, good morning to you, Nigel.
Now, let me ask you, are you a self-employed independent contractor, John?
Yeah, I think I am. I think I've got worries.
Just suddenly you thought, well, there we are. This affects a huge number of people.
It does.
We will ignore that for the moment.
It's too complicated for me, Nigel. I have an accountant, you see.
Yeah, well, there are going to be a lot of very busy accountants, I think. This is probably good for their industry,
yes.
but everybody else a little bit concerned. And well, you might have to put your prices up, John. But hey, let's see. So tell us, Storm George, perhaps not quite as damaging as...
No, I don't think it is as bad at the moment. I mean, it is still blowing very strongly across the whole country, although it is beginning to ease slowly in the south now, ahead of a band of rain which will be in the English Channel later. But no, I think the storms are not as fierce as they have been in the past 2 or 3 weeks. It is still blowing up to 50 to 60 miles an hour around coasts and uplands, and there's more snow to come in the Scottish mountains as well during today. But on the whole, it doesn't look too bad out there. If it was a normal winter, we'd say it was just a normal winter storm, if you like. But of course, we're now into spring. The 1st of March, I should say.
Yes.
Is now statistically the first day of spring. And we're starting to look perhaps at things a little bit quieter in the next few days. And I'm sure that will happen. I think there's going to be more frost around at night because the winds will ease down. There'll still be a little rain around, but generally speaking, things aren't looking too bad until the end of the week when we get you're not going to believe this, but we are going to see a new low pressure coming in on Saturday.
We're not.
I'm sure it won't be named because I don't think it's that fierce, but there will be a band of wet weather coming in and wind as well on Saturday next week.
And in terms of statistics, just how wet was February?
Absolutely awful, really. I mean, I'm looking at figures in front of me now. For example, parts of Glasgow received 348 millimetres of rain in 29 days, and that's, 13, 14 inches, something like that, probably. Up on Shap Fell, over the M6 there, over Cumbria, they've had 600 millimetres of rain. You can't really imagine what that would look like, but...
that's 2 feet of rain.
It's huge, isn't it? I mean, it is a bit exposed, Shap Fell, but there we go. I mean, where people actually live, it isn't as wet as that, but even so, it has been extremely wet. It has been marked down as the wettest February on record, just beating 1990, which is the previous highs, though 2014 was also very wet as well. And of course, you remember 2014, that's when the Thames was flooding the houses around the Thames, west of London, home counties, and also down in the Glastonbury area as well.
John, in some ways... I hope it's a long time before we speak to you again.
But so I can save up, pay my tax bill.
What exactly? John, thanks very much indeed. Well, there we are. Stunning amounts of rain in some parts of the country. Thank you very much indeed. And misery for people out there still flooded. And I have to say, my sympathy goes out to them. It really, really does. We are talking about government tax changes. We are talking about small companies, sole traders, acting as contractors who may well find, with a reversal of the rules coming from the 6th of April, that big firms no longer want to use their services on that basis. And what does that mean for an economy that's supposed to encourage entrepreneurs? What does it mean for a Conservative government? And the Conservatives are always telling us they're the party of business. The problem is, folks, they're the party of the big corporate businesses, and no longer are they the party of the small man and woman. And that's my concern here. And you know, a typical SMS that I'm getting on this: how will new companies be formed and grow? They won't be able to raise finance without their first client, and they won't get this because of the IR35 risk to the company, irrespective of CEST. This is pure nonsense and should be subject to a cross-party investigation. Has the new Chancellor made any comments on this himself, Martin?
Not that I've seen. I haven't seen anything, but I did see last week it was a question of a government announcement. So whether it was attributed to the individual, I think that's the way you couch it. Friday afternoon, release your bad news when nobody's looking. So
yeah, well, that government's very good at that. Let's. We've got lots of people ringing in with their questions, their thoughts on this, so let's keep them going. Let's go to Cornelius in Northwood. Cornelius, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am all right, Cornelius, but I'm concerned. I'm concerned that if we disincentivise people to set up their own businesses, we're doing the economy great harm.
Well, first of all, I'm not originally from Northwood. I'm staying at my daughter's place at the moment, but I'm from Swansea. I've spoken to you once or twice in the past.
Right, very good. Well, welcome back.
No problem, mate. My question is, from myself, I've had a limited company for many years as an engineer in the oil industry. I was based in the North Sea for 12 years. I do projects all over Europe, etc. And I work through agencies, whether it's in Aberdeen, London, Manchester, for oil companies as an independent engineer through my limited company. Now, are you saying that my limited company won't be able to function anymore?
Well, we're not saying, no one's saying you won't be able to function. The question is, will you be able to function efficiently? And you know, if the people giving out the work decide they can't be bothered with the potential tax and national insurance liability, you may well find yourself just doing the work for less money, Cornelius.
Well, I listened to the programme this morning and I can see the concerns of a lot of people, but the ones that I've listened to so far is like as if they work for a permanent employer through self-employed basis. Now, I've never worked for an employer, like for years, for instance. I've worked on contracts 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, etc., etc. And I have gone through a couple of agencies in the UK who have been stung for tax because of limited companies that could have gone bust, etc. And they put you through like an apparent company, and then you work through them, and they cover your tax, etc. So I'm just wondering whether is somebody who's starting up a limited company as a self-employed engineer who's not going to be solely working for a employer for long stretches of time, whether they can still function normal.
Well, let's get Martin's view on what. And so Cornelius Martin has been acting entirely legitimately in every way, but he does raise this concern. What does it mean going on?
Oh, yucky da, Cornelius, and happy St. David's Day to you.
Oh, it is St. David's Day. It is St. David's Day. Oh, how dim of me.
Yeah, look, we only just arrived back from the pond, haven't you? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. You see, I'm not only a high street accountant.
No,
I've got my feet on the ground some of the time, yeah. Cornelius, I've got some good news for you, because small firms should be okay under this new post-6th of April rules. Small firms means that the employer needs to establish whether its future contracts are going to come within or outside our IR35. Question: what is the definition of a small firms? Companies House website has this thing where the turnover is something like, I think it was £11 million or 10.2 million. A one-man band, boy, you've got to be a real specialist to clock up that sort of dosh, haven't you? Cornelius, are you in that particular category?
Sorry, could he say that income again?
Turnover of about 10 million quid. in a year?
10 million. I wish I was, mate.
Well, there you go. Hold on. You're in the oil industry. Now, do you remember Red Adair?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if he was alive today. I don't know how he died, but it certainly probably wasn't putting out oil fires at all. Whether he'd be charging that premium, but if you're a real specialist contractor, you can name your own price, so you might be there. So
yeah. But I see what he's saying there about naming your own price. But it doesn't really work that way, like because a lot of oil companies, for instance, I've done a project for 2.5 years based in Belgium. And a lot of these agents, all they do is try and hunt for the cheapest guy in order for the agent to make more money. So it doesn't really work out that way, to be truthful. But I've always worked all my life through my limited company, independently for oil companies. So sorry for interrupting you. Am I still going to be functional or not?
Yes.
In a word, yes.
Yeah, you'll be functioning, but Cornelius, there's no guarantee that the people that you provide your services to will say, oh, that's fine. We know he's legitimate. Martin.
Can I add something else to that as well? If you find you're toned down and they're classifying you as an employee, you can appeal. And the best thing that you can do is what I say about this employment status tool, CEST, is you've got it as evidence and keep going for that. Don't take the first no for an answer, because this is new legislation. It hasn't fully been tested. It's flawed.
Yeah. OK, Cornelius, you can appeal if anyone gives you a tough time. But then again, if I'm out there bidding for business, the last thing I want to do, or the last thing I want to get a reputation for, Martin, is contesting against companies that are handing out the business.
You don't bite the hand that feeds you, do you?
That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah, that really is the problem. Carol is on the line. She's a new caller from Germany. Good morning, Carol.
Hi, Nigel. I'm actually in England. I did call before from Germany. But,
OK, fine. Well, Carol, we've got you anyway. Tell us about your status.
Well, I'm actually, I've been self-employed for 20 years. But I'm actually now on a state pension. And so I've always had several clients, but at the moment I have one. And I know that is always a questionable thing. But I don't have to pay national insurance anymore, and neither does the employer, as I understand it. So am I affected by this?
It's a rotten line, but did you hear what she said?
Not
Martin?
all of it. I've made notes. You've got several clients and you're left with one.
She's got one client and she's on a state pension.
Yeah, I've got that.
And she's is she going to... She says she's not paying national insurance.
No, she's exempt because she's on a state pension.
Yes.
The answer is you paid enough into the state, good health to you. You paid enough into the system. We won't ask you to pay any more.
But if she's just got one client,
well, that's the danger. If you just got one client,
should she really be an employee if she's getting work?
No, it depends. If you just got the one client, how do you work, Carol?
Carol, you're back, I believe.
Great. Yeah.
That's better. Mm-hmm. That's better. So we were just talking it through. You've just got one client, though, yeah.
Yeah, my question isn't actually about that. I realise that can put a question over self-employment. But my main question is, as a pensioner, I don't pay national insurance anymore. And so the state isn't, neither the client nor I'm gaining in that sense from self-employment. So am I affected by this? Am I affected by the new rules?
If you are classified as an employee, the employee doesn't pay national insurance, but the employer will still pay national insurance for the pensioner. And that's what they're trying to get, as much national insurance, employer's side as well. Talking about 13.8%, something about that, call it 14%. One of the big problems that if you are reclassified inside IR35, you do not get employees protection, sick pay, holiday pay, or anything else. So that's one thing to worry about. My question to you, though, is your one client that you've got, are they in the public sector?
No, they're not.
So it's a private arrangement.
When I first started working for them, I've been doing freelance work for a long time now, And when I first started working for them, they really wanted to have me on the books. But it suits me better, because at the time when I started working for them, I did have several clients. So I'd still have to do self-assessment. It would have complicated my life. So I really wanted to be self-employed. I'm cutting down now. As I say, I'm actually on a state pension. The work that I do, this has got nothing to do with the law. I'm actually helping them to get clients in German-speaking Europe. So I'm actually doing something to bring tax into the economy as a wider point on this subject. So it just seems, I'm doing my bit for the economy. I've never been eligible, or haven't been eligible for the last 20 years for sick pay. I want to know the legal position, but also make the point of how sort of destructive this move is.
No, you've made the point very well, Carol. Thank you. We're going to have to go to the break because it's now 11:48.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Noir's.
Health Secretary Matt Hancock has said the government has powers to enforce quarantines over coronavirus. What should our containment strategy now be?
Majid Noir's on LBC.
30 years ago, George Bush Sr. announced the dawn of a new world order. And if you look at the news today, it seems that order is coming undone. I'm Thomas Small, a historian and Middle East expert, and with Eamon Dean, I host a podcast called Conflicted. Eamon, what are you exactly?
I used to be a jihadist, an MI6 spy, and now I'm a security consultant.
To hear us connect the dots behind recent events, listen to Conflicted wherever you get your podcasts.
Vodafone 5G will have the power to change your world. From driverless cars to virtual reality and real-time gaming. That's why we're rolling out 5G across the UK. Discover Vodafone 5G on the UK's best mobile data network. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
NPerf testing awarded Vodafone Best 2019 mobile internet performance based on 35,664 tests on the NPerf app in the UK. Coverage may vary. Visit vodafone.co.uk.
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
Head southeast on Chapman Road, where cameras caught 3 untaxed cars this week. Continue onto Rothbury Road, where the DVLA clamped 2 untaxed cars yesterday. Continue towards Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. This month, 4 untaxed cars have been towed just ahead of you.
If your car is untaxed anywhere in London, the DVLA will find it. Tax yours at gov.uk/DVLA/taxitnow.
Tax it or lose it.
I'm Peter Jones. Lifting business performance is critical in today's uncertain times. But how do you keep up with changing regulations and rising demands? How do you break free from manual processes to raise productivity? The answer is technology that elevates performance and comes with industry-leading support. Over 1 million UK businesses, including my investment group, trust Sage to manage their finances, operations and people.
Elevate your business today with our free performance review. Visit sage.com/perform.
I'm Chris Riccobono, founder of Untuck It. I started Untuck It in 2011 because, like a lot of other guys, I just couldn't find a shirt that looked great untucked. It's a tough style to get right. Untuck It shirts were designed to be worn untucked. They have that just right length and more than 50 fits for tall, short, slim, and bigger guys of every age. Today, we have over 85 stores in America and Canada, and we have just opened in the UK. Visit us at Covent Garden in Westfield, London, or go to untuckit.com. Untuck It, shirts designed to be worn untucked.
Listen to this. That's the sound of your money doing absolutely nothing. At Hargreaves Lansdowne, we'll help you switch your money on. Over 1 million people trust us with their investments. We can help you make your money work harder too. Find out how you can switch your money on with a stocks and shares ISA from Hargreaves Lansdowne. Visit hl.co.uk. Investing puts your capital at risk. You could get back less than you invest.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Now, umbrella companies, we said earlier, would probably come up, and they have. I'm self-employed, operating inside IR35, earning a day rate and utilising an umbrella company. One of my concerns is that there are lots of rogue umbrella companies out there who try to maximise the contractor's take-home pay whilst reducing their tax deductions. But how compliant is this? The contractor is left in the dark as to whether or not tax deductions are at the right level, and resulting in a potentially large outstanding tax liability at the end of the financial tax year. Contractors need to have their eyes wide open if they are subject to IR35 tax laws, and at the moment we are still left in the dark, says Emma. Give us some thoughts on umbrella companies, Martin.
I discovered umbrella company only in the last few days. I was watching one of my webinars, and it was published by the initial letters are FCSA, and they pointed out they have a list on their website of approved umbrella companies, because there are some shysters around. And they're the sort of people that, Emma, you've outlined. You don't know at the end of the year whether they paid the tax over or not, or you're saddled with it. If you're inside IR35, if, as I said at the top of the hour, if the government hasn't got the money off you, off the umbrella company, bang, they're going to go pass it up the line just like a relay race until they actually pin it on somebody.
And that's what the change in the law is designed to do. And that then means we see some big firms putting in blanket bans. It's not pretty. Now, George has a question that affects a lot of people in this country. George from Hendon, good morning.
Hello there, Nigel. Just a quick question. I'm a private hire driver. I work for one of the major private hire companies in London.
Yes.
At the moment, I subcontract myself out to this company, and they take a percentage and pay me. Will they now have to, under IR35, will they now have to bring all their PAYE and national insurance in-house and pay that on my behalf?
More than likely. There's a lot of unknowns in this morning's questions as far as that goes. This is about the first one that I've come across that I can't say 100% you'll be in the clear. I would say small firms, the way the system's worked out so far is the big firms have actually put in place in the last few months new IR35 regulations. They're geared up for it, but there again, they've got the manpower and the muscle to do it. The smaller firms, and I've acted for many of people in your position, George, over the years, they've been quite happy where they've been having the daily rate taken off them from the companies operating it, and they are truly self-employed. They may still, with a bit of luck, because you come under the small firms area that I can see, be okay. But there again, this is untested waters, and it may well be that somebody would say, I've had a change of mind.
And it's very likely, of course, isn't it, that some of these car companies will take one route, some will take another route.
Yep.
George, you've been given no indication, no?
No, I'm taxed as a sole trader.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And nobody knows. I mean, even your accountant may have an opinion on Monday and change it on Tuesday, because, boy, in the profession, are we bombarded almost daily. I've got a Facebook page that I post all the stuff that I get in from the press. And at the end of this show, Nigel, if it's all right with the guys here, not only the questions, but the notes that I've made about this, I'll publish M. Levin & Co. Facebook page, something like this, and at least you can have a look. The crunch that I've come out with today is this check employment status for tax, CEST tool. Everybody should be looking at it, printing off a copy and showing it to whoever pays them.
George, your phone call convinces me of one thing, and that is, if this comes in on the 6th of April, with the sheer level of uncertainty that exists out there, it's going to be absolute chaos. Your phone call, George, has convinced me the government must at least suspend this for a period of time. George, thank you for your call. Nigel, great show. IR35 driving me crazy. I'm a contractor with a limited company, HGV Driving. So I receive my shifts in 1 week at a time. Also, I have my shifts often cancelled with no pay. That's a very fair point. Clearly, no sick pay, no holiday, now being forced to work through an umbrella company. Please help, says Adrian. And this is another just a plea for help, not understanding quite what the umbrella company means. This can't be allowed to go. We can't have this change on the 6th of April, can we?
Well, we haven't got much of a choice, but what we can do is to keep protesting. There was a protest last week outside Whitehall with it for about 400 or 500 people, and they've got the government to back off a little bit and say, we're not going to take any high-handed stuff for the next 12 months, but we've heard that all before.
And how long has this been sort of coming down the tracks at us?
For this, 2017.
2017.
March 2017, so we're coming up to almost 3 years ago. But I think over the last 3 years, we've had other things on in our news that have occupied us.
One or two political stories out there. And would it... I tell you what, I've got a piece of advice for all of you out there that are self-employed contractors, sole traders. You know, now that actually we're not arguing about Brexit every minute of every single day, we now have members of Parliament who better start doing their jobs again as members of Parliament. And I really, and by the way, Martin Levin, thank you for coming in this morning. Thank you for taking the calls.
My pleasure.
From people, and there's so much uncertainty out there. There's so many worried people out there. We're already hearing a blanket ban's being brought in by some of the big firms towards contractors. That means some people are going to be 20 to 30% worse off. Contact your MP. Lobby your MP. Ask your MP whether he or she knows the answers to any of these questions. And if they don't, ask them to pressure the government to suspend this. It cannot come in, being the absolute dog's dinner it is on the 6th of April. I will be back with you tomorrow evening at 6. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, it's Ian Payne. But right now, it's Majid Nawaz.
Can I just say thank you? This is really important because my agents filled out the form and I was deemed a contractor, and then another media company that I do shows for, when they filled out, they said I wasn't a contractor.
It's just chaos, isn't it?
I'm as confused as everybody else. And the government wouldn't be wise to upset broadcasters because we're caught in this rut as well. Thank you, guys, anyway. Coming up, religious violence at Royal Delhi last week was the deadliest in decades. What is happening to Modi's India? Before that, Turkish President Erdogan has threatened to unleash another round of refugees on Europe. In the age of terrorism and coronavirus, what can be done about refugee flows to Europe? But first, health officials are scrambling to identify patient zero of the coronavirus. Matt Hancock has said the government has powers to enforce quarantines. What should our containment strategy now be?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 12 o'clock, the Health Secretary says the government won't rule out banning large gatherings to stop the spread of coronavirus in the United Kingdom. Matt Hancock adds a vaccine to treat COVID-19 is still many months off, so ministers must consider all options to contain it. They include people working from home and discouraging unnecessary travel. But Mr. Hancock admits action shouldn't be taken in haste.